So welcome everybody to the second Saturday's poetry reading. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Dan Kerr, and I wear many hats at All Souls Church. One of the hats I wear is the privilege of being the moderator for these poetry readings, which we do every month. So we start on time. You know, one of the things that has come out of the pandemic is that, in the words of Mahatma Gandhi, the poets have behaved their way into a new way of thinking, where people now come to time on start on time. So we're gonna stick to that. So here's what we planned for you today. If our Charles is going to be our featured reader, we're very fortunate to have Charles. I personally have one of my favorite poetry books is one of his, In the Wake of the Glacier. So very glad to have Charles with us today. If you want to participate in the open read, just enter your name into the chat box and I will monitor that. If you cannot navigate the chat box, don't worry. In my day job, I'm an inclusion expert, so I will inclusion consultant. So I'll figure out how to make sure that we include everybody in the way that they want to read. We do believe strongly that feedback is a gift. So if there's something you like today, if there's a suggestion that you'd like to improve the program, send an email to danielbkerr@verizon.net. After each poetry reading, I always debrief with Kathy and I always debrief with Barbara. We've been doing this interactively, virtually since June, and we've been refining it as we go along. So far, we're doing well in terms of the planned agenda. We start at 12:10 today. If we need to flex because there are people who want to read, we're willing to flex. Generally, we're around sometime between 12:15 and 12:30. But again, we'll make sure that everyone has an opportunity to read. So after I get done with just getting everyone all settled, I'll turn it over to Barbara. Barbara will introduce Charles. Before she introduces Charles, she generally reads a local chat poem. Then we'll move on to the open read, and then there'll be some concluding remarks from our poet laureate, Barbara Southern, and she will also announce the next poetry reading, because again, we do these things every month. So I recognize that you're here for poetry. You're not here for evangelization or for me to convert you to anything, but I will share with you that this is one of our outreach programs at All Souls Church. We're very fortunate to have a relationship with the poets and with Barbara's leadership. All Souls is a historic building located right in the entrance to Stony Brook. We've been there since the community has been there since before the Civil War. Our national landmark Stanford White Design Chapel has been there since 1896. The doors of the church are open every day. So we collect, you see the woman, every picture, it tells a story, Rod Stewart said. So I'm just going to go from left to right here. Starting at the top, there's a woman at St. Gerard Mejia Roman Catholic Church in Port Jefferson. So every day when our doors are open, we collect food for the hungry, and the food is deposited at that Catholic church once a week. They feed a couple of hundred families there. Going down in normal times, and when we get through the pandemic, we will resume our tradition of doing monthly concerts in the church called Saturdays at 6. That's on a hiatus right now. We can't get everybody into church and socially distance for those concerts. Wonderful setting to be inside the church for a concert. Acoustics are wonderful. We do Gregorian chant once a month. Come into the church. It's mystically lit. There's the beautiful music of the monks chanting and or the music of Taizé. You recognize those two handsome people there. That's Robert Savino passing the ceremonial twig to Barbara when she became Poet Laureate of Suffolk County. We also do a weekly rosary program. People interdenominational people think that rosary is just something Roman Catholics do. That's not true. Anglicans do that. Native Americans do that. Hindus do it. Muslims do it. All sorts of people do the rosary, so do that. And we also once a month, up on the right-hand side, is we do Native American drumming as well. That's Rick Stadler, who's our Native American drummer. Mystical healing experience out of the Native indigenous cultures that goes back thousands of years. We do that once a month. And I'll conclude with the fact that the church is beautiful. It's historical. It's on the top of the hill, but we've got people who can't make it up the hill. So each year we do a 5K race, 2K walk called Souls for All Souls. And those people pictured there, you'll recognize Barbara and Kathy and also Stefan, and those Sharon Doyle. So Barbara leads a group each year called the Live Poet Society, who don't run in the race, but they walk in the race. So welcome to this program. That's a little bit about us. We're very excited that you're here and grateful to Charles. And I will now turn it over to our Poet Laureate, Barbara Southern, for a little bit of poetry and an introduction. Barbara, all yours. I will get the picture off the screen and it'll open up to you. Barbara, you're on.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I'm always happy to see your beautiful faces. This is a beautiful Saturday morning. I'm going to start by reading something from an anthology that was sent to me very recently by Daniel Thomas Moran. He was second Suffolk County Poet Laureate. And he sent me a box of these books. He might be sending Kathy some too also. And he would just like us, when we can all be together, I will be happy to give them to you as gifts. And I'm going to read one of the poems. And I think I'm reading this for Dan a bit, because I found this lovely poem by B.J. Cassidy. And it's called Wing. I made a chime of seagull bones, and it would ring outside my home like wind and feathers, swoosh of wing, a haunting sound of longing unfulfilled. The bones would beat against the driftwood bands and chime against themselves, a headless bird, a broken flock. Before a storm, they made a frenzied sound as if they would again to mount the wind. One day I took the chime down, unlashed the bones and took them to the beach where I had found them over many days and weeks and threw them up into the sky. Now in my mind, sometimes I hear the sound they made, their call, their cry. And that's a poem by B.J. Cassidy. And there are many wonderful, wonderful local poets in this anthology. And now it's going to be my pleasure to introduce Dr. Fishman to read for us. And he co-founded the Long Island Poetry Collective in 1973. And I am so happy to say we're still very much active on Long Island, taking on the job of running Zoom poetry workshops during the pandemic. So it's a wonderful thing that Charles is here with us. And to think that he was one of the co-founders in 1973. He created and directed the Visiting Writers Program, programs in the arts, and the Distinguished Speakers Program at Farmingdale College. He was also series editor of the Watermark Poets of North America Book Award and founder and coordinator of the Pomanock Poetry Award competition. Since 2009, he served as editor of PRISM, an interdisciplinary journal for Holocaust educators. His poems, essays, reviews, and translations have appeared in more than 350 journals and major anthologies. His three most recent books include two poetry collections, Water, Underwater, and In the Language of Women, and the groundbreaking anthology, Veils, Halos, and Shackles, International Poetry on the Oppression and Empowerment of Women. His most recent collection is In the Wake of the Glacier, New Selected Poems. So among his awards are the 2014 Aesthetic Creative Writing Award for Poetry, the New Millennium Prize for Poetry in 2012, Patterson Awards for Literary Excellence in 2007, 2010, and 2012. The 2005 Patterson Poetry Prize runner-up award for Country of Memory, the 1996 Anne Stanford Poetry Prize at the Southern California Anthology, and the 1987 Gertrude Kleynor Memorial Award for the Poetry Society of America. And truly, I could go on and on, but then he wouldn't have time to read his poems. So let me introduce Charles Fishman.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's very good. Okay. I'm going to read, I think I'm going to read 6 poems, and I'll comment about a couple of them. I want to start with a poem that the excellent and very talented Daniel Kerr suggested I read. I know you know him, but I'm learning more about him all the time. This poem is called Charlotte Amalie, 3 Passions. It's a little cramped to read like this, but I'll do it. I want to say about this poem that it's really connected with the other poems I'm going to read in one way or another. Basically, I'm not reading poems on the Holocaust. I'm not reading poems on nature and other things that I write about. I'm going to be reading poems that fall into this particular category of being about human beings and the issues that are so important to them, and to me, and to you, I think. Charlotte Amalie, 3 Passions. My 48th year wakens to rain and sunlight. The day grows brighter. At high noon, I climb in tropic heat to the old Sephardic temple. With you again, my wife. We like the feel of consecrated ground, though we need no priest or rabbi. Our vows hold fast, hard work, and undiminished caring. Dining with you is the harbor twilight and nightfall over the city. You are the right wine to complement the meal, the chef's special sauce that draws succulence from the lamb. Music that enters like a vine twining down a waterfall is your presence at the table. All my days made more pungent, headier with you so close. Later, the winding stair of a converted sugar mill lures us into night's clear country. From this height, the heart of the island opens up, light on light in a dazzling scatter. Before we go, I climb the stair alone. You're holding back the finest gift. The next poem is called Daddy Kissed Your Hand. It's for my father and for my mother, and definitely for me. Daddy kissed your hand, and I saw you as you were all those years with him. He kissed your hand, caressed your cheek. I saw the clean lines of your nose, your brow, the pale lids that closed your eyes, the delicate, unbejeweled ears, your dry and immobile mouth, and the skin of your numbed arms, blotched and darkened, a precious parchment only the non-existent gods could read, but which Daddy touched so tenderly. I saw you, Mommy, how little your goodness mattered to the powers that rule this world. How little your enormous pain weighed in the scales of time and justice. How small a thing you were in the throb and tick of the universe. And yet how large you loomed in Daddy's mind. How deep a mark you made on the unarticulated graph of the human. When Daddy kissed your hand, I saw your hard death, that its power to wound would never be defeated. And I saw that this man who had loved you with his full heart loved you still and would live with all his memories of you, like the press of your wrist against his trembling lips. My friend Dave Confort is with us today, and he asked me to read a couple of poems, and I'm going to read one that he stayed with and one that he didn't, but which I like as much as the one that I'm staying with. And I thank you, Dave, for being here. These are poems from a book you don't have, most of you anyway. It's called In the Path of Lightning. And I wrote this selected poems, or put it together, before In the Wake of the Glacier came out in 2012. The first poem I'm going to read is a poem about my father and me. Very important in my life, very difficult in my life, as it is for so many. It's called Cape Hatteras, 1938. I went fishing with my father in that dream. I have the pictures in my head, the old Woody crammed with gear and nested in the dunes. I have his rods, reels, sinkers, hand-carved lures. His hip boots fit me snugly. This can't be memory, for where are the striped bass we've caught? Where is the sea's green membrane, the sea's bitter blood? Where are the shiny scales that should stipple our arms and fingers, the shore tips and heaves? Stars brush our lips with healing galactic fire. Father, can you feel the briny stars on your aging body? I went fishing with you in my dream, and you reached into the dark waves to teach me. You walked the twilight waves with me. You released me from my anger, but it was death we shared, not life. Can you feel the tide run now, its churn and ebb? Can you hear the storm pound the sand with rain? Can you feel the line scream in our bleeding hands? Have I hooked you, Father? Will I land your heart at last? Thank you for your clapping, which I can't hear. I want to make a comment. It's really so interesting. In the previous poem, I read the wrong word and made up another one instantly that actually fit, that even I wouldn't have known the difference. In this one, I read the wrong word, and I'm not sure I put in the right word, but it happens. I find this very often when I'm reading, that sometimes my brain comes up with a word that maybe should have been the word in the first place, or that fits anyway. Some of you may have had that experience. It's such an interesting, weird thing. Thank you, Dave, for asking me to read that. The poem I want to read is also about my father, but this one is after the first one I read, Cape Hatteras, 1938, was one I wrote when he was still quite a living man and very vital and very scary sometimes, and then transmogrified into being an amazing adult human being. And this one happened after he was dead. I actually had the opportunity to have a very large place to read at Farmingdale State. And I had that until a new president came in and kicked me out. But while I was there, I was able to go into that space in the top room, the top floor of the library, and close it, and no one could get in there except me. And I had that space and I could focus in a way you can't usually focus. And this is a poem I wrote there. It's called Good Day, Father. Good day, Father. I hope this finds you well in the world beyond this world. How has it been for you in that dream of perfect light that curls like winter's breath around your vanished face? I'm trying to make sense of life, this life without you. Flashes of light and color and snippets of speech recalled like March wind tailing off to dust or ice melting from lakes in April sun. I remember how surprised we were when at 90 you learned to speak from your heart. That was a gift none of us had foreseen. Our Father bequeathing his strength to us, the certitude you owed to a lifetime of slow attainment. And Father, we heard you then, at ease in your frail bones, at peace beneath the storm clouds of heaven. And this is what you said to us. Each morning, I wake up. I thank God for another day. You touched us with those words. But then I asked, Daddy, what if it's a terrible day? If you fall and something unrecoverable inside you spills? You looked straight ahead, not a glance at my face, and repeated, I thank God for another day. Father, I recall your late blossoming, the sweetness, that fragrance of flowers no words can precisely express. And I'm asking myself, since you are no longer here to guide us, if that is the best way to live, to accept what comes, even the deepest rift, or if we should wrestle with the wind. Father, speak to us again. Got a little tangled there at the end, sorry. How much time do I have?
You're fine. You got another 10 minutes. You're getting lots of virtual clapping and lots of nice things in chat, which I'll share with you after.
Okay.
You're doing great.
Okay. I'm going to read 2 more poems. So that might be just about right. The first poem uh, is one that's very, very important to me because it comes from the book In the Language of Women, Women I Know and Women I Didn't Know. There's only one poem in that book, which is about me. And it's the first poem because I wanted to introduce why I, as a man, was writing this book. And this particular poem is for one of my Indian friends. They're very important to me, these women. And I'm still in touch with some of them. One actually was my co-editor for Veils, Halos, and Shackles, International Poetry on the Oppression and Empowerment of Women. Her name is Shelley. And I wish she was here to hear this. This particular poem is for Gloria Sasakala Franklin. She's been through many things. I've written a bunch of poems for her. And well, you'll get the feeling of why I'm reading it today. It's called Forgotten Songs. What links us together? Isn't it untrammeled energy, affinity, green shoots of the body? Not long ago in India, the rare home radio marked the passing of time. In Kolkata, you had a small telerad with a winking green eye and started each day with the All Asia service of the Sri Lanka BC. At noon, you'd switch to Burma Broadcasting and listened for a single delicious hour, then jump to Yuvavani in Calcutta for lunchtime variety. The day would fly like that, to vivid Bharati for Hindi songs, then back to Yuvavani again. Never mind the distances. Each station zinged in with true vitality, so that Cliff Richard, John Denver, Glenn Campbell, the Everly Brothers, Elvis, George Baker, and Susan Ray all seemed to sing just for you. Their voices spilled into your body and took up residence there. Your favorite was Pussycats, Broken Souvenir, and you still hummed that song. And you still listen to the rhythm of the falling rain. You too are on your own again. Good evening, sorrow. Glory, you were so taken by the radio's power, by the songs that poured from it. You named your daughter Ramona after Wolf Gilbert's Ramona, respun by the Blue Diamond in 1960. Remember the Carpenter song? Those were such happy times, and not so long ago. For you, every sha-la-la, every whoa, whoa, whoa still shines. Before he died, your father taught you songs and had you sing the words while he strummed his guitar. You were not yet 10, but not a nerve in your body has relinquished them. There was Lonely Cowboy, Goodbye Hawaii, Oh Susanna and Queen of My Heart. Your father was gone too early, but you recall each tune. Beautiful dreamer, he sang, wake unto me. Starlight and dewdrops are waiting for thee. And you sang along with him. The last song will be a poem I wrote for one of my teachers. It's a very painful poem for me. Do you mind? Is there possible I could stand up? I really hate reading seating, and I don't like it at all. I want to stand.
You can stand, that's fine.
Is it possible?
Yes,
Maybe I can get you so you can see it.
sure. Yep, that's fine, that's perfect.
Good.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
If I'd known, I would have done them all reading. I lost my picture.
Oh, we
Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't even know how to get back. It's called Miss Curtin. Margaret Curtin, 68, was found clubbed to death in her Ozone Park home Tuesday. Miss Curtin. She must have been sleeping that dark evening in November, or reading in her upstairs bedroom, drifting on a tide of words, then swimming with the black but moonstruck current all the way downriver. She must have been lulled by the rush and propulsion of language so that she could hear nothing extraneous, nothing below the surge and murmur of the pulsing stream, nothing above the moan and pitch of it. One thing is clear. She didn't hear her murderer enter, didn't hear when he clicked on the TV or later climbed the stairs. Immersed as she was in the book she loved, she let the world float away. Why would she wake when death entered? I remember her in her brightness, how she stood in the stark landscape of the classroom, winsome and matronly at once. Her starched white blouse, though buttoned to the throat, could not conceal the rise and fall of her breasts. We called her Ma Curtin, though she was still in her early 30s. Archetypal schoolmarm, she forgave our ignorance while encouraging the tiniest sparks of wit and insight. How we relished her sternness in her casual displays of anger or irony. We read the grace notes of affection. I recall her pale Irish face, her sharp tongue and short temper, but also the nosebleeds that taught us she too was vulnerable, only older and more complete. Who knew if we kept hammering away at our lessons, one day we might shine like her and live. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry that I can't see you. How do I get you back?
We're listening to the other poets, and normally I just share a few quick reflections, but I'm going to invite Barbara to chime in here. Just Charles, it was just absolutely beautiful. I mean, I've been to Charlotte Amalie. I know where you stood at Harbor. Your poetry just grabs us emotionally, brings us in. You know, the poem about your father kissing your mother's hand, and the Cape Hatteras, I felt like I was there, and the letter after death, and the beautiful tribute to the woman in the radio, and that anyone who's ever been a teacher, who's ever been impacted by a teacher, was just moved by that last one so much. Barbara, would you like to add anything to that?
Well, yes, in particular, the last poem, I was just so enthralled on how you were able to turn this extreme pain into such poetry. It was just a very moving poem. And I was particularly moved by the poems about your mother and father. Um, it's wonderful when you can turn all of this experience of living into such fine words. Yes.
Thank you so much. Could anybody make this work so I can see you?
It's something you control on your screen there, Charles. So there's
What do I do?
something on your desktop. Did you maximize your screen? Was there a little box? You probably clicked the box, and that box.
Oh, I see it. Wait. I got you back. Thank you. I couldn't see you clap. I couldn't see anything, but I could hear you. And I am so grateful for your comments. Thank you. It's very rare to have that because all the places I've read, big places and everything else, sometimes the hundreds, you don't get that. You don't get that at all. And it's so kind of you to make those comments. It really touches me deeply. Thank you.
That's great, Charles. And again, this is recorded, and although I'll send you a link to the recording, and you mentioned a couple of people that you wish were here, you could share that link with them as well. Okay, so we thank Charles and we thank Kathy for inviting him, and we're very fortunate now to not only have had Charles, but now we're going to move into the open read. Very, very timely. We just came off of a Passover and Easter, so somewhere along the way you may have seen the 10 Commandments. So 10 Commandments, we don't have 10 for the open read portion. Just if you'd like to read, just you enter your name in chat, and I've been multitasking here, so in chronological order, I've got all the names of those of you who put your name in chat. Please, out of respect for others, please only one poem and 5-minute maximum. Most of the poems are much shorter than that, but please don't read anything that goes beyond 5 minutes, and out of respect for your fellow poets, so they have a chance to read. Do keep your microphone muted until I call upon you, so we don't get the background noise. Wait to be called upon, and we will find a way. I'll go through all the names that I have, and I assure you, between Kathy watching me and Barbara watching me, if there's anyone that I missed, we will definitely give you a chance to be heard in terms of your reading. Okay, and we were willing to flex up until about 12:30. We'll see how it goes. All right, so I'm going to clear the screen here, and the first poet, and again, you appear in the order that you went into chat. So when I'm going to call them out in threes. So we're going to start with John DiCarlo, then we're going to go to Amanda, and then we're going to go to Bill Batcher. So John, you're first, so you need to turn on your microphone.
Good, thank you. Charles, thanks for the wonderful and touching reading. And also a quick note, when I graduated from the Psychiatry and Religion program at Union Theological Seminary in 1983, and was coming back to Long Island, I remember getting into a conversation with a stranger on Broadway and 120th Street. And we were talking about things. He goes, I think there's a Long Island poetry collective. You should get involved with that. And I needed that. I needed that then, and for all these decades. So thank you.
Well, I should say that the other person who was the co-founder of that was George William. What's his last name? I don't know, but George. He was. I can't think of his other name now. But yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I'm going to put on a little British Baroque here. What the Royal
William
Queen...
Fisher. I got it.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What the Royal Queen really owed Mr. Alan Turing. We think it's Grand Gloucester. We think it's quite noble York. We think it's supremely imperial Exeter that the Royal Queen has, after the death of Alan Turing, after the suicide of Alan Turing, largely due to his public humiliation imposed by the British Empire, largely due to his electrotherapy imposed by the British Empire, designed to rid him of his alien sexuality, as if it had migrated from the jungles of British Guiana or Borneo, that the Royal Queen has pardoned him for his hideous sins, cold-hearted as the sins of the Falkland Islands and the ice of Antarctica. After all, is mathematical genius, more than the bloody life and death of Christ, proselytized throughout Bermuda, the Sudan, India, Burma, British Honduras, Rhodesia, Oman, and St. Helena, is what saved the Brits from the Nazis, for Christ's sake. And yet the Brits, in their twisted Anglo-Saxon logic, well cultivated in the halls of Oxford and Cambridge, felt logically compelled to crucify their savior. What a bloody ripoff of the Christological cross, bleeding its merciful good news from Sierra Leone to Iraq, back down to Southwest Africa and the West Indies. Indeed, as much as Churchill was justified in glorifying the RAF, saluting them with the slogan, "Never was so much owed by so many to so few," he should have boldly declared from the shores of Gibraltar to the sands of Malaya to Nairobi, capital of Kenya, that never was so much owed by so many to one Alan Turing. Okay, Churchill was depressed with his Upper Lake District brows and his Southampton balls, depressed because his ideal was to resurrect the empire as a global imperial entity, and all he was able to achieve was the staving off of the blitzkrieging Nazis, barely keeping the subway-driven Brits alive on their own little lonesome isle. But all the more reason he should have reached out to what was beyond his local domain of the Sheffield chin, taking his smoky, fuming cigar out of his Manchester-looking jaw with his Ipswich fingers, whereby he and the Queen should have taken turns. From the pissing pubs in Watford, Coventry, and Norwich, turns throughout the royal nights of the West Indies and the downtown Abbey, getting down on their New Zealand knees, adoring with their Egyptian eyes, fondling with their Nigerian tips, and licking with their Irish tongues, while kissing with their Scottish tips, Mr. Alan Turing's code-breaking hearted member, royally, Australianly, Londonly, and Plymouthly supreme. Thank you.
If you had been around during the
Thank
revolution,
you for the history lesson.
I know that the royal family is in mourning right now, but I felt compelled to read that one anyway.
good. That was great. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to Amanda. Amanda, you got to turn on your mic. Amanda Gorman. Could give her another second. Okay, so we'll welcome Amanda when she comes back. Let's go to Bill Batcher.
Okay. This is called April. It doesn't break a sweat or make you wear too many woolen coats and hats. Perhaps galoshes for a day, but that's the end of it. It doesn't seem to care. It is not first or last. With 30 days, it is an average month. And none of these are for parading flags. April agrees to bring us Easter morn, but does not raise a fuss if March usurps that holy day. Its nights are not too short and not too long, though even equinox does not belong on its grid. There isn't much to say, yet in its quiet way, with softened voice, I find the days of April middling nice. Thank you.
That's great, Bill. Like a whole new perspective on April, on what a magical month it is. Okay, Amanda, are you still there? We'll welcome you if you can figure out to get in. And we wait for Amanda. So next up would be Linda, and then Richard, and then Herb. So Linda, always good to have one of our Northport poets. Linda, you turn on your mic.
Thank you. Dan, are you sure you don't mean Ann Garamella?
No, that's not.
I know that's Glenn really, but I just wanted to make sure.
No, but could be. We'll come back to him.
Okay,
Next round.
This is
And Carmen is the poet that read at the inauguration. That's why there
Okay,
might be some confusion there.
okay.
Yeah.
We'll get them all. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so Linda, over to you.
this is called Poem in the Grass, Thoughts on a Large Piece of Turf by Albrecht Dürer. Her hand reached down to pull up that last clump of weeds. She stopped, taking time to feel the cool earth around it. She was tired. The dampness felt good. Taking in the smell of it brought her memories of hastily picked dandelion bouquets that always made Mommy smile. This small square of life was a virtual forest. Spiders, ants, centipedes, worms made their journeys across lean superhighways, each with their own unique dance, pausing at the leafy roadside stands for a long, cool drink, taking the time to warm themselves in the sun. An occasional winged creature brushed past, searching for food, shelter, shade. Dragonfly, butterfly, ladybug, each one catching the sun in its wings, some reflecting it back to her. She would never look at weeds in quite the same way again. Her hand reached down. She looked at that small space one more time and smiled. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Well done. Okay, over to Dr. Richard. Richard, you just have to turn on your
I
mic.
just been muting there.
There you are.
Okay, good. So this poem, I'm writing a series of poems about a fictitious composer, inventor of new music instruments. So some of his instruments have been the piccolino and the triple bass. And this is one called the cantante. The poem is titled Wind Singer. Wind Singer. What would music be without the saxophone? If you have heard of Adolphe Sax, and what of Federico Bolognese and his Cantante del Vento, singer of the wind? The strings and winds are like two people who speak the same language yet rarely meet, except in formal prearranged meetings. Bolognese, their matchmaker, joined them in a loving embrace from which he created the cantante. Breath blown over strings, their shudder altered as the ear transforms the motion of air into sound, this its mechanism, but how to speak of its soul. Can one describe the voice of a cello? Compare the timbre of flute and oboe. It is a whisperer of secrets in the night, duet of sun and moon to the beat of sidereal time, laughter of a woman in love. Charles, thank you so much for your reading. It's just a gift to hear you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard, for reminding us that there is indeed poetry in music. So, okay, Herb, over to you.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
You are loud and clear.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay. A dream of Lorenda, my late espoused saint. A golden sun approaches the middle of a silver blue sky. I'm sauntering through a green gold pasture. It's very quiet. The pasture is deliciously fragrant. It's a delicate late spring day. A slight silver haze hangs and adds such a plein air touch that I know I'm in a Monet. The sun reaches its zenith. It gleams like a golden bowl. Then I notice a different sparkle. At a distance from me stands a sunflower-haired woman. Her hair sparkles and flows beside a glowing sunlit stream. She stands stoutly, solemnly, like a spell-weaving spirit. I walk bewilderedly toward this Burne-Jones Sibyl. Suddenly, The entire vision vanishes. A rain downpour wakes me. Startled, I look around and see my bare, musty, and Lorenda-less bedroom. It's a cold, wet, early spring night in Farmingville. Thank you.
That's beautiful, Herb, and that's just such wonderful. You've channeled your grief into poetry and shared it with us. Thank you. That was very
Thank you.
Okay, now, so let's move on now to Judy and then to Jack, and then we'll go to Glenn. So Judy, you're up.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. Wonderful, poignant, personal, powerful poems. Great reading. Thank you. So happy Poetry Month, all. I thought I would read this in honor. Pillow Moon over a night drive. Cruising to the serene sounds of poetry on CD, liquid silvered streams caught in headlight beams drive dark shadows away. Fill my head with crystal images that sing as I caress the rim of the wheel. Satiate my craving for down-filled solace, for companionship, for easing a long drive, twitching my hands with the want to write like him, to get inside his head, to know what he knows, to lie prone beside him as he reads his dreams to me. It's the floetry of it all. Smooth lines pause for impact like steady white lines beside my tires, language rolling on like the miles, draining my mind of baggage, opening lanes to journey where he wills me to go, hand held in his, immersed in floetry. Too soon I reach my destination, still he speaks to me of his love for poetry, shows me the view from his window, has me tasting sweet tangerines, juice pooling at the corners of my mouth, smelling onion grass in a fresh cut field, or are they my poems flowing through his, through me? I rush through my assignation, start the CD for the languid drive home. He climbs in beside me, our time together to share his secrets, to float in my love of his floetry. Thank you.
Wonderful, Judy. You've coined a new word. I've never heard of floetry before. Lots of chat on that, and people are also impressed with the look of your desk as well. It looks like a poet's desk. Okay, thank you, Judy. And over to Jack.
Hi. Thank you, Charles. Your wonderful reading. And this piece I'm going to read is called In the Beginning, the Door. Outside the door that I long to walk in is the lonely place of waiting. The waiting that had started in the beginning. In the beginning, I was waiting, and I am still waiting. What is behind the door, I wonder? Is there some imaginary land where I can walk unfettered? In the beginning, there was a time when I was put outside the door, and as a young boy, I started to knock, yet there were no answers. Then came the promises, one after another. The key unlocks this door. Then the keys would break or get stuck in the lock, or have the firmness of a licorice stick. Then others promised me, if you do this, the door will do that. I played the fool, the wise man, the good boy, the poet. I smiled for a while, yet the door would not open. Perhaps I will accept that this door will not open. It never will. I can be happy on the side without being a song and dance man to force the door open. Yet maybe, just maybe, in the beginning, I was put on the other side of the door. Just maybe, this is the other side of the door, and I can still be a song and dance man, but there's nothing really to coax open.
Thank you, Jack. Great poem. Never know what's on the other side of that door. So, okay, we have Emily Sue and then Dan, and those are the last two we have listed. So If you haven't put your name in chat, you want to put it in chat. If you can't figure out how to do chat, we'll still figure out a way to include you. So Emily Sue, you're on. You want to turn on your mic, please?
Yes, hello. Thank you so much, Charles. I really enjoyed your reading. And your poems about your parents prompted me to pick this one today. It's called When This Is All Over, Letters. I want to drive to DC to see my brother and visit my parents through their letters. Letters languishing in a storage locker amid my brother's books and household discards. Found in the basement during cleanout for the sale, in shopping bags crumbling under the dust of age. Letters they wrote during the war, declaring their love and dreams, and the soldiers' preference for books over guns and arbitrary rules. Letters they wrote after the war, when his show business dream took him away to earn barely enough for a room and meager supper. Letters that may reveal who they were before children changed their lives.
Thank you. It's
Thank you.
amazing to think of the power of letters and how they speak so many years later. So, okay, thank you, Emily Sue. And lots of poems about parents. I'd like to read a poem of mine. And I chose this poem. We just concluded. It's always wonderful when Passover and Easter occur at the same time. So it was Easter and it was Passover. And also my mother's birthday is coming up. Apologies in advance if you see a tear in my eye as I read this. It's called, some of you have heard it before. It's called Our Lady of the Lakes. And it goes like this. After 80 years, the death of my father and a few strokes, it was time for my mom, Vivian, to leave Florida and move back to Northport for the last chapter of her life. Her house in Miami Lakes was empty. Her car was donated to charity. All that needed to be done was to attend the last Mass at Our Lady of the Lakes Church. Before we boarded the plane with her faithful dog, Murphy, to ride the last chapter of her life in Northport. The pastor knew this was Vivian's last Mass. All the church members she knew, loved, and helped for 23 years. Were told she was returning to her family in New York. Unsteady on her feet and mumbling a bit, she held my arm as she made her way to the altar. Vivian would join the altar procession this last Sunday, and read the scriptures to the congregation from the altar during her last Mass at Our Lady of the Lakes Church. The Old Testament reading that day, or as our Jewish friends would say from the Torah, was from Genesis. Moses came down from the mountain and his face was aglow because he had seen the face of God. As my mom got up from her chair on the altar and made her way to the lectern, her gait became strong and steady, and her voice suddenly sounded as clear as thunder. When she read the passage about Moses, I could swear that her face was glowing as well. At that moment, the youngest of her 8 children and all the people at Our Lady of the Lakes saw the face of God in this old woman. The last chapter back in Northport was happy. Children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren visited often, and her faithful dog Murphy enjoyed the change in seasons, especially his first snowfall. Eventually, Father Time caught up with her. Dementia set in. She lost the ability to drive, and she lost her independence. But every Sunday after church, I would bring her the Eucharist, and we would share communion together in her living room. However, her last stroke was a big one. She lost her ability to talk and lost her ability to swallow. A feeding tube replaced meals with her family, and a nursing home replaced her last house in Northport. I still visited her after church, and I still brought her communion. Since she could not swallow, I would dip my finger in the consecrated wine and place the blood of Christ on her lips. Whenever she received the wine, her face glowed, just like Moses coming down from the mountain, and just like when Mom read the scriptures for the last time at Our Lady of the Lakes. Thank you. Thank you. And I think we're over to Kathy. Kathy Donnelly, you're on.
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Charles, I just want to thank you. Very profound reading. I found that even not only what you were reading, but how you read, you have such a connection to your words. It was nice to hear it slowly and intently, telling us your experiences in life. Thank you. Just beautiful read. So I have a little poem here, and what it's about is a woman whose husband is in a war. It doesn't have to be any particular war, but how it changes her life. And so the poem is entitled New Habits. She sleeps with the phone, no further than arm's length. It follows her in all the rooms of that dusty old house, eats her breakfast, takes her bath. Her link to you tags along to the mailbox, no letter, keeps its rank. They watch TV together, hope not to see you on the evening news, unless in a parade, celebrating along the way your journey home. That's it.
Thank you, Kathy. Beautiful. Okay, and we have a poet from North Carolina with us again today, Jim. Jim, you're on. You got to turn on your mic. Jim sometimes prefers James.
Okay, here I am there. I'm good to go. Y'all ready?
Yep.
Okay, this is a note to Amanda Gorman, like you were mentioning now. Amanda Gorman in Voyage magazine appeared so natural as well as serene. First for a Black person, this and that, had heard her read poem as we sat. Much honor on her was bestowed, excellent manner with honorable mode. Never forget, and seemed so revealing. Poem she read, excellent and appealing. What President did will be to invite inauguration with poem she did write. Her poem all of us would impress. In picture she wore a pretty dress. Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful poem, and thank you for solving the Amanda mystery. Okay, so let me just do a little quick check here. I'm going to change my view on the screen. So at this point, I think everyone's had an opportunity to read who signed up. Is there anyone who hasn't been heard yet that would like to read? Just wave your hand. Okay. Oh, Jay. Yes, Jay, welcome. Thank you. Turn on your mic, Jay, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll do a little Whitman piece. That music, always round me, unceasing, unbeginning, yet long untaught, I did not hear. But now the chorus I hear and am elated, a tenor strong ascending with power and health, with glad notes of daybreak I hear. A soprano at intervals sailing buoyantly over the tops of immense waves. A transparent bass shuddering lusciously under and through the universe. The triumphant tutti, the funeral wailings with sweet flutes and violins. All these I fill myself with. I hear not the volumes of sound merely. I am moved by the exquisite meanings. I hear the different voices winding in and out, striving, contending with fiery vehemence to excel each other in emotion. I do not think the performers know themselves, but I think now I begin to know them. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Always good to end with the bard. Okay. Anyone else who would like to read? Charles, if there's no one else, we do have time if you want to bring in one or two more. Got to turn on your mic, Charles.
Now you can hear me, right?
Yep.
I would like to read one more poem that you asked me to read.
That's fine.
Okay?
Good.
I'm going to do that. I have to find it because I didn't plan on reading it, but I'm going to read it because there's some time and I know you like it. Here it is. Wow, there it is. Okay, I'm gonna stand up. You know, I just want to say this. The reason, let me make this so you can see it. Let me see, that's better, right? The reason I feel that about standing up was actually touched on by Emily Sue. I really appreciate that. And all the comments, but language is very physical. Most people don't understand that, but language is very, very physical. It's in your body, in your mind, in your heart, and you don't live without it. And so I want to read this poem because Dan, who is such a terrific technician, poet, and friend, I hope, asked me to. It's called The Family Outing. Long Island, early 1950s. A summer day, and Mom gets lost on the parkway. It's getting late, the time when shadows gather. One more turn, and we're at Pilgrim State. In the back seat, Harriet and I grin at each other. Is she making a delivery? Maybe Aunt Edna, who sits up front on edge as usual, with all her grievances showing. When you're 11 or 8, you don't know it can be you. Darkness creeps in a little under the arched entranceway to the hospital, where the car is parked but running. Now Edna is cracking up. Her tears are streaming. And Mom, good sport that she is already in stitches. Their laughter a cross between howling and weeping. Whatever this disease is, it must be catching. Harriet snorting and shrieking. Edna's choking and hacking. Mom slapping the wheel with both red hands. And I can barely breathe in the face of this hysteria. It's a great time to be alive when the signs shift and a new reality encroaches. Who can find her way home then? When Mom gets us rolling again, we fall silent, ready to be admitted at last to this house of dementia and heartbreak.
It's beautiful, like all the others. Thank you so much. Okay, let me just go again, do one last check and make sure that everyone who wanted to read had an opportunity to read. So Barbara, as we're waiting, I will turn it over to you. You may want to announce the next poet as well.
Yes. Wow, that last poem, I really took my breath away. I just 1,001 memories of Pilgrim State, Kings Park, the Parkway, Long Island. You just painted such a portrait, and the pain that can go through families. Just wonderful. Everybody is going to leave here, I hope, with a full heart. I certainly am. Thank you, Charles, for reading for us. And thank you, every one of you who read your wonderful poems. Next month, we're going to have Susan Dingle. And I think a lot of you know Susan Dingle. And so it's going to be I am so looking forward to hearing. I think Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she lives in Oregon now. So it's going to be wonderful. There she is. Dan has put her picture up. So anyway, I can't see you now, but I can see you, I guess, on the right-hand side. So enjoy your weekend. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful morning of poetry. There you are.
Thank you to all of you. And look up my books.
Yes, yes.
They're available.
Yeah, you see if you can get them, if you can get them in the chat where they can be bought, you know, where they're available, or somehow you get the word out. Because a lot of times people would love to buy the books, but they don't quite know where to go to get them.
You get them on Amazon and other places.
Good. Amazon's a good place that everyone can get them. Yeah. That's
I just
great.
want to say one last thing, and is, it's been really a terrific experience to me, because as I said, when you do regular readings out in a college or whatever, they introduce you, you read, and then it dissipates. Unless you're very, very lucky and you maybe go out to dinner and then you can talk a little bit, but talk about something else. This was so intimate and lovely. I appreciated every word. And I want to just answer Jim, who asked me in a question. Yes, I am on Facebook. So you can reach me there. You guys are terrific. I'd like to stay in touch with all of you, certainly with this program. It's really wonderful.
I'll stop recording here.